Muhammad and the sleeping kitten. Have you ever been suddenly woken when you are in a deep sleep? It's not very nice, is it? It feels really horrible. Here is a story about a little kitten who was enjoying a deep, restful sleep. The story tells of how a very famous man called Muhammad stopped the kitten from being suddenly woken up. Once upon a time, in the far distant land of Arabia, there lived a good and thoughtful man called Muhammad. Muhammad was always kind to animals, and he was a great lover of cats. Often he would sit stroking a cat on his lap. His favorite cat was a little kitten called Muezza. Every day, Muhammad would pray to Allah. When he prayed, he always wore a special robe. One day, at prayer time, Muhammad went to put on his robe. Guess what? There lay the robe, and on top of one of the sleeves lay Muezza, the kitten. Muezza was curled up, fast asleep. Now I am sure most people would simply have pushed the kitten off, but not Muhammad Rather than disturb the sleeping kitten, he cut off the sleeve of the robe. That's right. So that Muezza could carry on sleeping in peace, Muhammad cut off the sleeve and put on the robe with one sleeve missing. Muhammad and the ants. Have you ever been camping? Have you ever sat around a campfire? Hundreds of years ago, a man called Muhammad was traveling across the Arabian desert. Muhammad was a good man, and he had many followers. Some people said that he was God's messenger in the world. At the end of a long, hot day, Muhammad and his followers stopped to pitch their tents. Muhammad walked around the camp making sure that everything was ready for the night. One of the men lit a fire to keep himself warm. Muhammad walked over to the fire and noticed that there was an ant hill nearby. Some of the ants came out of the ant hill and started walking towards the fire. The ants were attracted by the light and the warmth of the fire. Muhammad became worried. If the ants came any closer to the fire, there was a danger that they would be burned. They were only tiny little ants, but they were still God's creatures. Muhammad spoke to the man who had made the fire. "Quick, put out the fire!" The man used a blanket to beat out the flames, but he was puzzled. Why had Muhammad told him to put out the fire? He looked round, and for the first time he noticed the ants. Now he knew why Muhammad had wanted him to put out the fire. Muhammad showed kindness to all living creatures, and he did not want the ants to be harmed. From that night on, whenever the man lit a fire, he always made sure that it would not hurt any creature, however small. Muhammad and the thirsty camel. It was a hot, dusty day in the town of Medina. There was very little shade, so most people stayed in their houses trying to keep cool. There were a few shady places outside. In one part of the town there was a garden, and in the middle of the garden stood a fountain. Some men were sitting around the fountain in the shade of some tall palm trees. This was normally a peaceful spot, but near to where the men were sitting there was a camel, and it was making a terrible noise. Why do you think the camel was making such a din? The poor animal was tied to a post in the blazing sun. It was very hot and very thirsty. It could hear the tinkling sound of the fountain, and it could see the water sparkling in the sunlight. If only it could have a drink. Just then, the men at the fountain were joined by a stranger. He looked round at the men resting in the shade, and then he walked over to the camel. He was very annoyed at what he saw. He went back over to the men. "Who does this camel belong to?" he asked. "It's mine," replied one of the men. The stranger looked at the man and spoke sternly to him. "You should be ashamed of yourself for treating this creature so badly. You made sure that you were cool and refreshed, but you left your camel tied in the hot sun with nothing at all to drink. When we use creatures to help us in our work, we have to look after them. We should treat them as we would like others to treat us." The man now realized how unkind he had been and felt sorry for the camel. He led the hot creature to the fountain and let it drink the cool water. Then he allowed it to rest in the shade. The stranger smiled and walked away. "Who was that?" asked the owner of the camel. "His name is Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam," replied one of the other men. "He is a good man, and some say that he is the messenger of God." Hey, amazing my YouTube family! Thank you for watching Spiritual Miracle Tales. We hope these stories have touched your heart and inspired your soul. If you enjoyed our content, please subscribe to our channel and share these tales with your friends and family. Your support helps us bring more uplifting and miraculous stories to the community. May peace and blessings be upon you. Stay tuned for more inspiring tales. Don't forget to like, comment, and spread the love.